Hey everyone, and welcome back to a live new episode of Climate Curious presented by the Solutions Project. I'm Shanae Watkins of Agency of Joy, your host. Joining me is my ASL interpreter, Rory Burton. We're here to talk the latest issues about environmental racism, climate justice, and COVID-19 with movement leaders from across the country. Our goal is to transform the way that you think about climate change and the way that you can take part in its solutions. Every Tuesday, we have fun, we get serious, and we engage in real talk with solutionaries who are creating lasting change and is really saving the planet. Today, we're talking Generation Z from campus to community. Whether sparking social commentary on social media, protesting in the streets, or just sharing their art, Generation Z continues to show us new ways to use our voice for change. Today, I'm speaking with 3 college students from the Cooper Union, Howard University, and Yale University about how they're using their voices and leadership to advocate for climate justice and beyond. What can we learn from our guests today? I can't wait to find out later on in our Real Talk segment. But as always, send in your questions using hashtag ClimateCurious. And we're also sending a shout out to our partners over at Now This for streaming across their channels. All right, y'all, let's get into the show and bring in our guests. Our first guest is a 19-year-old Afro-Caribbean artist, a climate justice youth leader, and an organizer at Uprose Brooklyn, an organization she joined at the age of only 14. She's currently a sophomore at Cooper Union School of the Arts here in New York City and has been featured for her climate activism in Teen Vogue and BET. Everyone, please welcome Nyiesha Mallett. Hey, Nyiesha.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so glad to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, yes. Our next guest is a senior at Yale University who is majoring in environmental studies and urban studies. Whether in her research in the community or just being out in the community, she advocates for an inclusive climate movement of all ages and is also a participant of Greening Youth Foundation and the North Face's Women of Color Environmentalist Program. Everyone, please welcome Lauren Kim. Hey, Lauren.
Hi, everyone.
How you doing today? Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. All right, y'all, and rounding out our trio today is a climate justice advocate, an international speaker, consultant, and a sophomore at the Howard University. An organizer and activist since she was in middle school, she's a founding member of Generation Green, a youth-led Black environmental justice organization. And in 2019, she was named as one of Grist's 50 Fixers. Everyone welcome Elsa Mengitsu. Hey, Elsa.
Hey,
How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. It's so nice seeing all y'all lovely faces. I'm so happy that y'all are joining us today, and I can't wait to get into it. So let's start the show and let's jump into the news of the week, first thing. All right, and so as reported last week by multiple media outlets, the largest public university system in the country, California State University, is requiring all students to take an ethnic studies or social justice course in order to graduate, a move that will go into effect at the beginning of the 2023-2024 school year. But it was not made with a unanimous decision. Social justice activists and ethnic studies faculty and scholars on the CSU Board of Trustees actually voted against the chancellor's proposal. Some argued instead of a need for a full ethnic studies or social justice department and not just one course. Girl, what a time to be alive, wouldn't I say so? Lauren, I want to start with you. I know that you're in California. How effective do you think a requirement like this is actually going to be?
I think the requirement effectiveness really depends on if they fund the probably Black and brown scholars who are going to be doing this teaching. So thinking about when you make this a requirement, are you going to adequately prepare your staff and your faculty to handle this demand? Are you going to be able to support the additional time and labor that goes into this? And I also think about ethnic studies should be integrated throughout every department. So by making this a requirement, does this absolve like other departments, for example, the environmental studies department, from talking about race? And so it shouldn't just be a requirement and funding the department in itself, but also ask other departments to think about how they're going to integrate ethnic studies into all of their curricula.
For sure, for sure. And that's what, they were talking in the article, different, folks, whether, faculty and students saying that like, yeah, girl, like, but there is more than just a course. So I think that makes total sense. I went to a big state school, shout out to Michigan State University. And I remember meeting a ton of white people who honestly had never even met another person outside of their race until college. Nyiesha, do you think this will actually change people's views, like those who have maybe never met a Black or brown person before?
I think the gesture is it's okay, but I think my opinion on it is that I feel like this should be started earlier than college. I feel like this should be implemented in elementary schools and middle schools and high schools. When young kids, 4 and 5 year old kids, they love the world. They love the people around them. They want to help. They enjoy being good, and they are good. And if we instill that at them at the young age, they'll grow up with this social consciousness that's different than a lot of us that's growing up today. And it's more embedded into the courses now. So you don't have to worry too much about having these courses if they grow up learning this.
You as you say that, I harken back to a couple episodes ago. We had Tatewe Means on from Thunder Valley CDC, and she talked a lot about, with especially in regards to Indigenous liberation, Indigenous power, really about educating in, starting early, starting in elementary school. So I'm glad that you said that. Elsa, I'm thinking whether it's a required class or not, should colleges be doing something about this to address, the moment that we're in of racial justice?
No, yeah, this is the bare minimum that colleges can actually be doing. I don't think that forcing people to take one class is going to, like Lauren said, absolve anyone of anything. Like universities are not only centers of education, they are centers of life. They are in the community, and oftentimes they are sources of injustice for the very communities that they take up. And so at the very least, these universities can make sure that students are getting comprehensive education about the world that they live in. But this is just one step of many, 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 many steps universities need to take. One, to acknowledge their role in the things that they are teaching, and two, to make sure that they are preparing their students to live in a world that does not look like it did yesterday and will not look like what we think it'll look like tomorrow.
Yes, look, y'all are bringing it. Come on, y'all better. Yes, okay, snaps all around. Snaps all around. Yeah, I think this is a great conversation to have, and I'm glad that we're starting this today because as you all are college students, right, this is going to impact not just college students in California, but essentially all around the country. So this is a key conversation really to be having, and I'm so glad that our audience is hearing from you all about what we can be doing. All right, so that's all the time that we have today for our news of the week. But up next is our Real Talk. We're coming back with our guests. We'll be right back. Hey everyone, welcome back to Climate Curious. I'm Shanae Watkins, and I'm joined with Nyiesha Mallett, Lauren Kim, and Elsa Mengitsu. Y'all be sure to keep sending in your questions and comments for our guests using hashtag Climate Curious, and we may just read them out loud on the show. But right now, it's time for Real Talk. Today, we're talking Generation Z from campus to community. Generation Z, or Gen Z for short, have grown up completely with digital technology, and as a result, continue to show us new ways to keep using our voice for change, especially in that medium. Our guests today are college students, as we've been talking to already, and they're also climate justice activists. So we're going to be talking to them a little bit about their work. Before we get into the work, as we're talking about college, we were just talking about California State University and their new requirements. I'm wondering, it's COVID still, it's still a pandemic. What's going on for you all with classes getting ready to start back up in the fall? Elsa, I'll start with you.
What's going on with COVID and classes starting in the fall?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I have no idea. I know my school, they just got their reopening plan approved by the city of DC. So a lot of people will be going back to campus. I will not. I think we really need to take a step back and really think about, like, why do we need to keep maintaining everything that's happening? We're living in a pandemic. Let me emphasize, we're living in a pandemic. This doesn't happen. This does not happen often. So there should not be any pressure for schools to be opening back up and life to go back to normal, because there is no normal. So honestly, I have no idea what this semester is going to look like in the middle of a pandemic.
Okay. Lauren, how about you?
Yeah, I'm in California right now, but coordinating a move to New Haven to go back in the fall. Even though classes are virtually, I felt a commitment and had some home situations that made me choose to go back to campus, but also realizing how intentional I need to be about what reopening looks like, not just for the Yale campus community, but also thinking about New Haven and what an influx of students in the fall who, honestly speaking, will probably not be following social distancing measures, and what kind of that's going to be doing to the New Haven community. And so I think fall reopening is a kind of scary situation, but I'm hoping that people will be intentional and thoughtful about their actions.
Got it. And Nyiesha, how about you?
Yeah, my situation is a little different. My school is in the middle of Manhattan. So we aren't opening up, which I think is a good idea, knowing that all the students are commuters and that we don't really have dorms where everyone can stay, and we have from freshmen to seniors. It's safer to have everything online. So right now we're seeing maybe the year will be online, but we'll check back in the spring semester to see how that works. Now, I'm in art school, so there's some things that I do need access to, like my studio and the workshop. So they're letting us have access to that, and they're gonna schedule stuff to let people come in and to keep social distancing. But for the most part, yeah, online, which is gotta be creative.
Yeah. As we are producing the show from online, I definitely can understand and relate. Well, no matter whatever happens for y'all, wishing y'all continued luck and success getting back to the school, and for all y'all homies out there watching as well, going back to school. And stay safe, y'all. Please keep social distancing. I know that you miss your homies, but please, social distancing and mask. Okay, off that. All right, Nyiesha, I want to bring it back to you. I know that you said you're here in New York, born and raised in Brooklyn, but I also understand that you have a Caribbean family, growing up in a Caribbean household. I wonder, what can you tell us about the impacts of climate change on communities in the Caribbean, like your family and like so many other families that are in the Caribbean?
Right. Yeah, I definitely, I understand the pressures that climate change has on small Caribbean islands like Grenada, where my mom is from, but also we've seen it with Puerto Rico, This is stuff that can happen more frequently. And these are countries that are filled with people of color, Black and brown bodies. And they don't have access to this stuff that some people in America have access to, So we really have to, they're also contributing the least to climate change and experiencing the brunt of climate change. It's unfair, and it's something that we have to think about. We can't just think about ourselves. We have to think about other people. We have to think about our families and our friends and human beings across the world, across the global South, in the Caribbean. We have to think about other people.
Exactly. I mean, I totally agree. If I'm being impartial, I also know that you're a climate justice organizer right here in Brooklyn with one of the Solutions Project's frontline grantees, Uprose Brooklyn. What can you tell us? I know that y'all had a recent environmental win. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So Industry City, which is our neighbors on the waterfront, they wanted to basically they wanted to make the waterfront commercial. And we believe that the waterfront could be used for could be a part of the regenerative economy that we hope for and we're planning for and organizing for. And if you allow the waterfront to become commercial, it starts to look like other communities that we see throughout Brooklyn and throughout New York City, like Williamsburg, like Chelsea Piers. That's what happens. And our communities right now don't need that. We need a waterfront that's climate adaptable, that we can use, and that we can push to fight not only in New York City or New York alone, but for the area that we're in the U.S. Like, this is a big thing for us. This is not small. So that was a really big win. It was a win for the community. Gentrification, we know that comes with rezoning. So that was amazing that we were able to put a stop to that. But there's always more work to do, always more pushing to do.
Well, congratulations on that win just in this moment. That's a huge win, and I know that's taken a lot of years of a lot of hard work from a lot of different people. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Welcome. Elsa, I want to turn it over to you. I understand that you've been organizing since you were in middle school. Honestly, girl, you're doing the people's work. So thank you. But I also wonder, what has been one of the biggest lessons you've learned about mobilizing?
Wow, that's a big question, actually. I'm big on lessons. I'd say one of the biggest things I've learned is that everything is seasonal. Like, what goes up comes down. What happens will happen again. What doesn't happen will not happen. Will come back. Everything regenerates. It happens over and over again. So in mobilization and just working with people, I've just learned that, like, nothing is separate. Everything is interconnected. The way we respond to people, the way we connect with people, the intentions that we bring into spaces, how we build with people, the energy we send out, the energy we receive, it's going to come back. Like, everything is with intention. I've learned, like, with mobilizing, coming from like a really young age, like, I've made really big mistakes in how I hold people and how I build things. And I've really had to step back and, like, learn about the impact of how I'm building with people and, like, what is my long-term goal? Like, are the movements that we're building right now, if we're not sustaining ourselves, if we're not sustaining our community, if we're not sustaining our culture, and upholding the values that we want to see in the world that is not here yet, if we can't sustain that within ourselves, then we don't have a chance to sustain a movement. We don't have the chance to sustain a world that we want to build. And so for me, the biggest lesson was really, like, everything is seasonal. What you do is what will come back to you. How we hold people will come back to us. How we build with people, the intentions that we hold going into a space is the foundation of which that we build from. And so if all of that is not in check, the projects, the collaborations, the mobilizations, the campaigns that we're working on, it's useless. It doesn't hold merit. It doesn't have value beyond the end date of that campaign. We're not building anything. We're just adding. We're reinventing the wheel. We're not pushing forward. We're just doing something to do something.
Yeah, that's very, very powerful. And what struck me as you were saying that, right, is the idea of owning up to mistakes. I was just looking at an interview of a certain person sitting in a certain White House, right? And we see very clearly how adults can almost refuse to accept certain mistakes that they have made. I wonder, what, if you care to share, what's been one of the biggest mistake that you feel that you've that's happened that you wouldn't want another young person to see through?
Yeah, so when I worked with like climate justice groups a year ago, I was organizing like a summit, and it was like my first time really stepping into a national leadership role and really figuring out how I work, and just like, as organizers, we all know we put so much on ourselves. We don't take breaks. We put so much on our plate, always keep going, adding. And I was doing that, and it led to like a really bad relationship that I had with how I view work and how I view people. And it's like, yeah, I took on so much of this work, and it really deteriorated like how I view people. Things started becoming a little more transactional. I didn't really hold people with how I wanted, because like I was burnt out. There was so much on my plate that should not have been there, but I kept putting it on there because, as organizers, that's what we do. So like, I mean, we made it to the finish end. We organized an amazing summit, but like the cost of that was like my mental health, and it was my relationship with other organizers, and really like I had to step back for like a year and recover with like how awful my relationship with working had become. Like it's intoxicating to do so much. Like it's empowering, but it's like if I can't sustain myself, if I can't sustain my heart and the work that I'm doing, it's not fair to the people that I'm working with, because all of us can do amazing things. But like in the process of doing those things, like we can get lost if we don't take the time to step back, ask for help, reevaluate what we're doing, looking at where we're going. Like it's a lot. We're youth. Like we're placed in positions of responsibility that we didn't ask for, and so that's a lot to internalize. And like as a high schooler, like really coming to grips with reality of like just the world I'm living in, my world that I'm living in, and how that relates to just like organizing and people and the values that I have. Like it was like a big mess that came together and really exposed a lot of things about me that I really hadn't had the time to think about.
Right. Well, I'm glad that you had some time to kind of reflect and take back, and like you said, to really prioritize that piece of self-care. I think that's a conversation that we could have a whole episode about that with Climate Curious, about how do we take care of ourselves in this moment. But I'm glad that you're doing okay and that you're here with us today to keep talking about that, because as you share your story, I'm sure you're inspiring so many others to also take note and to take stock of what we can maybe pause on and to take care of ourselves. Of course, babe. Okay, I want to bring it back to campus and bring it over to Lauren. I know that you, like we said, you're an environmental studies major, and we've talked on this show. We've talked a lot about environmental justice, and as we've already talked about with you all, the people who are really out there fighting and advocating for fresh air, clean food, and healthy water. I'm wondering, is that part of environmental justice? Is that part of your program at Yale?
So when I first got to campus, I grew up knowing that I wanted to do environmental studies. And I came to Yale specifically because they had a farm, and I was like, I'm going to work on that farm, and I did, and I had a great time. But Yale, as a predominantly white institution, and coming from West Coast, coming from my family background, I had a hard time finding my voice, the stories that I cared about in the environmental studies curriculum. And so thinking about the histories that we're taught, the voices that are lifted up, that are actively racist, that are actively anti-Indigenous, and learning about them in my environmental history classes, going on outdoors trips, but then not having the right gear and feeling excluded from those things, there's a lot of factors that really pushed me out of environmentalism. And I think the only reason why I decided to stay in the program was because I met other students of color who were interested in the same issues that I was. And together we were able to advocate for the creation of an environmental justice concentration within the major. So to explicitly say there needs to be a structural change in this program because there are students that are interested in this issue. And now you as an institution need to support these interests. You need to support what students have expressed because it's so important. It's like, it's our entire identity.
Yeah.
I think in school, there's a lot of change that needs to happen. And I was really surprised to find really strong allies within the very institution that I, felt so excluded by.
Yeah. And inclusion and exclusion, I think, that's it's such powerful. I think, one of the reasons why we started Climate Curious, right, is to be able to give voice to folks who may be outside of that. I wonder, when it comes back to Yale, was that program accepted? Like, what's the status of that? Is it officially a concentration that new students can sign up for?
Yeah, there's an environmental justice concentration now. It's really popular. And what's even it's so awesome because people who don't even have that concentration in the major are doing work related to environmental justice in all of their other fields. And I think thinking about how we can strengthen our relationship within a cohort-based program like a major, like different work that I was able to do in Washington and Taiwan, really reminded me of when you're doing this work, it's not like an individual person who has this individual research interest or passion. It's a community that's really supporting each other, and you should take community ownership and have a relationship with that work.
Yeah, and I want to get to that. And also, hey, Elsa, again, I know that we had a little technical issue, but I'm glad to have you back. Lauren, I know that you've done a lot of work with community, especially as you were saying, community-based in New Haven, Connecticut. Can you talk to us briefly about the work that you're doing in New Haven?
Yeah, so I received a grant from the Greening Youth Foundation as well as the North Face to be a part of their Women of Color Environmentalist program. And I was really interested in working with existing food justice efforts in New Haven. So there's an amazing urban agriculture initiative called Love Fed New Haven, which builds home farms and talks about food apartheid in New Haven, what it means to bring food justice to those communities directly. And so I was able to work with existing organizations and create different visioning events, educational events, and also just think about ways to integrate New Haven and our relationship with New Haven in my studies and at Yale. And so I really am thankful to have that opportunity to acknowledge my, as a non-Black, non-New Haven resident at Yale University, what it means to think about working with communities and not speaking for or imposing on local lived experiences.
Yes. Like I said earlier in the show, y'all, Generation Z, y'all hear this? Y'all hear what they're saying? I as someone who's like in that cusp, right? I'm a millennial, just recently turned 30. I often experience both and. There's folks who are, all about it, I'm for it, but also I see a lot of folks who are resistant, even to a conversation. And so I just want to share to you all three, just thank you, because it's a breath of fresh air to really hear from the youth, from folks like yourselves, who really are in it every single day and are actively resisting against a certain status quo. All right, y'all, that's all the time that we have for Real Talk today, right now. But up next is our question and answer segment. We'll be right back. Hey, and we're back. Okay, so our first question comes from Anna. She says, what can the older generation do to help support Gen Z activism? Let's do each of you all give it a round briefly. Elsa, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so coming from like a youth organizing background, one thing that was really integral to our work was adult allies, but more importantly, adult accomplices. Being youth and being so young, when you're not taken that seriously, too, you don't have the infrastructural support to do the work that you need to do, like other groups and established people have. Also, we're a bit inexperienced, but that does come with like a different set of vision. But that being said, like without adults who are speaking our names in rooms that we're not in, who are advocating on our behalf to get us funding and support, who are mentoring us through these processes, who are giving their time and their dedication beyond allyship, like we really cannot do this work. And so that is something adults can do, is like beyond standing in solidarity, like are you giving your time, your resources, your connections, your mentorship, like are you giving your platform to youth to kind of help us do the work that we're doing? Because we really cannot do it without like support beyond just standing in solidarity. We need resources, we need money, we need expertise, we need time, we need help.
Great answer. Lauren, how about you?
Yeah, I really resonated with a lot of what Elsa said, and it reminded me of what she said earlier about things being cyclical and how a lot of older generations have been through experiences that they may think may not relate to what Generation Z is going through right now, but to think about the commonalities that we do share and what knowledge can we pass down through generations. And I think a lot of that can take form in mentorship and just being really intentional about putting in your time and resources to support groups of young people, because it's really difficult. Like all these organizers, they're not just organizers, they're students, they're workers, they're family members, they have so many responsibilities, and to have a mentor who might have balanced that, who might have experiences or resources, would mean the world for so many young people.
Great answer. Nyiesha?
Yeah, Uprose is a huge proponent of just intergenerational leadership, right? So I believe that with intergenerational leadership comes storytelling, comes passing down knowledge that this is actually our culture. Storytelling is our culture, right? And passing down knowledge so that we don't repeat maybe something that they did and we could do it better. We won't repeat it. But it kind of just roots us, it grounds us in the work. I think I learned the most when I'm sitting across the desk from Elizabeth, just hearing her stories about what she did or what she came through. And that is just a moment for me to learn and take with me. And also understanding that our elders were youth when they started. Right? So you were a youth organizer. We're doing the same thing. So once we have that understanding of intergenerational leadership, this cycle that you give to us, we give to you, we give together, it will be easier. It will be an easier fight.
I love. And also, I know that you mentioned Elizabeth. Elizabeth, folks watching, is Elizabeth Young-Pierre, Executive Director at Uprose. Also, she was a first guest of ours on the Climate Curious show with Reverend Woodbury. And it's so funny as y'all were talking, so I was thinking of the story that Reverend Woodbury shared on our first episode. You know, he's an elder based in South Carolina, and he talked about getting activated at the age of 16 in the 60s, right? And the similarities in which you all have shared. So I'm so glad that question came up. Thank you, Anna. Okay, so our next question comes from Yanira. What advice would you give to young people getting ready to vote for the first time? Let's do backwards order. So Nyiesha, I'll start with you.
Yeah, my advice is to do your research. Yeah, make sure you do your research on the candidates. Make sure you're grounded in your own thoughts and your own ideas and your own beliefs. Like, you can say, oh, my family votes Democrats. We're all Democrats. We should vote Democrats. But vote Democrat because that's what you want to do. That's what you understand. You like what this candidate had to say. So we're going to vote for this person. As long as you're rooted in your own beliefs, you won't shift. There won't be no confusion to why you're voting for the person you're voting for, because that's who you want to vote for.
Great answer. Wow. I wish I heard that when I was getting ready to vote. Lauren, how about you?
I would say make sure to look at all levels of elections. So local, state, and federal level elections. Think about what issues are happening locally that you really care about, that directly affect you, and how can you translate those beliefs, those things you care about, on different scales. And just think about how each of those levels are just as important. So, you know, when I remember I first voted in 2016, and that was always on my mind was like, oh, the presidential election. But thinking about all levels of representation is also really important.
Completely. And Elsa, how about you?
Yeah, just to emphasize what they both said, there's an entire ballot. It's not just the presidential or the Senate races or anything. There's an entire ballot down to your head of education in your own local county. But also beyond that, your vote is not the only thing that you can do to be active. There's so many ways to make change, and the most transformative change does not always come from a ballot box. So when you do vote, keep in mind what you're voting for. We have to have steps in place to make sure that we get there. Voting is just one of those destinations. It's powerful. Take use of it.
Woo! Fire. Okay, last question from question answer. And I have this question. Who are the young people that you all are following that you want to shout out and that we should all be following as well? And I'll start with Lauren, you this time. Sorry.
Yeah, honestly, I had an amazing experience through this program called the Doris Duke Conservation Scholars Program. It was just 20 young students of color camping out in the wilderness and learning about traditional knowledge. And so I would lift up all of my fellow scholars in that program, especially Wawa Gatheru. She is an amazing environmental activist and writer, and I always learn so much from her and her humility. So I'm sure y'all already know her name, but just wanted to lift that up.
Thanks, thank you. Nyiesha?
Yeah, there's so much youth that I get the chance to meet and get the chance to work with. The youth in Philly are doing amazing work. Uprose is part of a larger organization called CJA, which is a collective of organizations across the U.S. That fight for climate justice. And these are our sister organizations. So in Cali, we have organizations in Cali and Philly and Detroit. These young people are doing the work. So I actually say, if you're interested, visit CJA and look at the organizations that they have under there. They're amazing young people who are doing the work right now.
Bet. And for everyone watching, CJA, that's Climate Justice Alliance. So definitely check them out. Like Nyiesha said, they have a whole network of young folks around the country. And Elsa, how about you?
Yeah, I was just going to emphasize what Lauren said. Wawa is an amazing Black environmentalist. She just founded Black Girl Environmentalists, which we are a platform just for Black girls that are environmentalists to come together and get resources and just have community in a space that can be really alienating. But other than that, I really am just inspired and follow like other Black girls that are organizers, activists, artists, just like full humans in their birthright. That's who I'm inspired by, and those are the people that I'm following. So those, yeah, Wawa is one of them.
Love that. Well, thank y'all for bringing Wawa. Hey, I don't know you yet, but hey, so getting good energies. And that's so great. Y'all came through with the answers today on question and answer. I'm so excited. Y'all keep sending in your questions and comments for our guests using #ClimateCurious, and we'll be right back. Okay, and we're back, and it's time for my partially favorite segment of the show, our rapid fire segment. This is the time where I get to ask our guests a question, and they have to answer with 1 or 2 words, and it's completely outside of the work box, so it's just like free for all. They have no idea. Okay, for this, because I know we're online, I'm just gonna, for the order of the questions, let's go with Nyiesha first, Lauren, and then Elsa. I'm gonna ask you all the same questions and just give me an answer. First question. I don't know if you all know, but there was a huge historic moment that happened over the weekend. Did you see Black is King, the film by Beyonce?
Yes. I love Beyonce. Yeah. Stop.
Okay, Lauren?
Yes.
Oh, Elsa?
Not yet.
That's okay. Every answer's okay, girl. You okay. It's waiting for you. I've seen it. It's amazing. I cried. Love. Okay, next question, astrology. What are your signs? I'm a Pisces, rising Pisces, and moon Cancer. Nyiesha?
Pisces as well, Pisces season. And I am an Aries moon.
Aries moon, love. Okay. Lauren, it's okay if you don't know your rising and all that other stuff too, P.S.
Everyone hates Capricorns, but I'm a Capricorn.
Nice. Capricorn is amazing.
Capricorns are literally the GOAT. Like y'all the GOAT. Elsa?
Leo sun. Just wanted to say that.
It's your season. Yes.
Rising.
Happy Leo season. Oh, yay. Okay, cool. Next question. What do you want more of in 2020? 1 or 2 words. Nyiesha?
Love and respect for Black women.
Lauren?
1 or 2 words, but.
Ooh, I want naps and collective care.
We want fun and less chaos.
Fun and less chaos. I agree. I want all of those. Okay, and last question. What's your most used emoji?
The
peace sign or the okay, yeah.
The face and the peace sign.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, there is the smiley with the peace. Yeah, okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Lauren?
I like the emoji with the big anime eyes.
Love.
Mine is the sideways laughing person. It's like a big laugh.
That one? I love. All right, you all. Well, that is all the time that we have with our guests today. I want to thank you all so much, Nyiesha, Lauren, Elsa. Y'all are badasses. It's been so great having this conversation. Thank you all for joining us today, for all the work you're doing. Please let everyone know where everyone can follow you. Elsa?
Instagram is Elsa Mengitsu, ELSA MENGISTU. Twitter is Girl Bye Forever.
Oh, I love that. Girl Bye Forever. Lauren?
I'm on Twitter as well. My username is LaurenKim_LK. Give me a follow.
Bet. And Nyiesha?
You can find me on Instagram at art_SEST_VITA03. But if you just type in Nyiesha Mallett, it'll pop up.
Love that. Well, you all, please follow these amazing leaders. Follow the organizations that they're connected with. They are all doing great work. So please continue to support. But that's it for today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in for another episode of Climate Curious, presented by the Solutions Project. I'm Shanae Watkins of Agency of Joy, and next week we're talking about climate disasters and natural disasters and the impact climate change has on them. Now, y'all know it's actually hurricane season, so this conversation couldn't be at a more pressing time. So you're not going to want to miss that episode. That's all the time we have, though, for today. Thanks so much, and don't forget to smile. See you. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
We're done with exploitation and extraction game.